Keeping Up with Jones, the Lonnie Jones podcast adventure, is sponsored by SJ&L General Contractors. They are licensed in both Alabama and Tennessee, and they provide services such as mass grading, storm drainage, sewer and concrete improvement, asphalt paving, erosion control, demolition, and heavy hauling. If you need any of these services, contact them 931-433-4660, 931-433-4660. Also, they are in need of heavy equipment operators, concrete finishers, CDL dump truck drivers, and pipe layers. If you're interested in employment with this family-owned business, you can go to the website www.sjnl.com. That's www.sjnl.com. The colored mats were laid out, and the children were taking their places. A little boy about 5 or 6 years old laid down on his mat. The teacher came by checking on her students, and she stopped at this little one's mat and said, "It's time to take a nap. You need to take your shoes off." He said, I don't want to take my shoes off. His little shoes were connected to braces, and the braces were connected to his knees. And you could tell that his feet or his ankles had been malformed. And the teacher said, "Well, it is our nap time, and at our nap time, we lay on our mats, and when we get on our mats, we take our shoes off, and so you have to take your shoes off." And the little boy, with tears forming in his eyes, looked at her and desperately pleaded, But what if I dream I can run?" I do dream I can run. I started trying to run, and I mean jog. I started in 92 when I first started hanging out with the police guys. And I've never been a high mileage runner, never been a fast runner, but once I started trying to jog with those guys, just finish the route they were, and there was a time there when I could actually run with them. I'm back to the days now where I just run behind them. Jason Brightwell asked me the other day when I was doing a run-walk routine. He just stopped and looked at me and said, "How old are you?" But I don't dream I can fly, and I used to have flying dreams, but I dream I can run. And I run up hills effortlessly, and I'm not out of breath. And I always come to the awareness that I'm on some hard trail, and it's usually a trail that my mind has made up. But I'm running, and I'm not hurting, and I'm not struggling. I'm just running in my dream and dreaming I can run. My love-hate relationship with running goes a long, long way back. People like me aren't built to run, and people who are built to run don't look like me. But I've tried on and off over the last 29 years to try to be a runner. I ran the hill that goes from the bottom of the valley to the top of the mountain in Spencer, Tennessee at Fall Creek Falls. I had announced one day foolishly that I would run this hill. I was driving up this mountain on a van, little switchback roads, and I said, "I'm going to run this hill when I turn 40. And on my 40th birthday, I headed to Fall Creek Falls. I got paged out. My pager went off, and where we were about to turn onto the interstate or onto the highway and go north into Fayetteville to go to Fall Creek. South of us was a police barricade, and the SWAT guys were there, and we had a barricaded suspect. And on my actual 40th birthday, I got to hang out with the guys while we shut down the parkway for about 8 hours. That Friday, I got in my little vehicle and drove up to Spencer, Tennessee. I parked my car, my little truck, underneath the water tower, and I began to walk back down the mountain. A fella picked me up on the way down the mountain, asked me where I was going. I said, "I'm going to the bottom of the valley." And He said, what are you going to do when you get to the bottom? I said, I'm going to turn around and run back up it. He goes, well, yes, you are. He stopped the car right there in the middle of the road and just stared at me. I said, it's something I said that I was going to do. We talked as we drove down to the valley, and his mother was in the hospital. And before I got out of the car, I prayed with him. And then, yes, I turned around and ran up the 40-year hill. I did have a sticker with my spider logo on the back of the sign at the top of the hill. It's probably long since been removed or changed, or they've switched the sign out. I've run in every state that I've ever been in. My goal is to run at least 2 miles in every state in the Union. I've already logged Hawaii and Alaska, got those out of the way early. I've run in some foreign countries. I've run in London. I've run in Honduras. I've been able to kind of just be a prolific on and off runner. I was at a conference several years ago. Courtney Armstrong, a little hypnotherapist and a trauma expert, was putting on a workshop, and I skipped the first 5 days of deer season to attend the Courtney Armstrong workshop. That should speak volumes for who I think Courtney Armstrong is. And they were doing this hypnosis stuff with chronic pain. And so I'm trying to be a willing participant, and so I'm there. And they ask, does anybody have a tightness in a body part, a knot in a shoulder, or something that's a little glitchy this morning that we could use as a demonstration? Well, nobody. This is the first day of the conference, the second day of the conference, and nobody's saying much. And so I'm not shy. So I raised my hand and said, yeah, my right shoulder, right trapezoid muscle is a little tight. And, I'd be willing to volunteer to see if this hypnosis stuff for chronic pain works. And then it was, well, what did you do to your shoulder? And I said, well, I'd rather not say. No. You've got to give us some background before. Okay, this morning before I came to the conference, I got up and I drove to the Stones River Parkway. I'd never been there before. It's this little Stones River, runs in and around the area close to Nashville that I was at, and it was laden with fog. It looked pretty abandoned. It looked like the places of serial killers, heffalumps, and woozles. And so when I got out of my truck to run, I reached behind the seat and picked up my ASP baton. Nobody in the room knew what an ASP baton was. It's a little metal expandable baton that Tommy Mayo gave me years ago. And I ran with this somewhat heavy piece of metal in my right hand, clutching it. And so I just went for a little run there. And because of the way I was carrying it, it caused my shoulder and my trapezoid to knot up. And that's why I've got this problem. So that seemed to satisfy everybody, and they looked at me a little askance because here I am running with a blunt force trauma weapon, a force multiplier, and I'm in a room full of psychologists and therapists. And anyway, they did the hypnosis thing, and sure enough, it loosened my shoulder up, and I didn't have any more problems the rest of the week. I came in the next morning, and a gentleman who was at the conference was there. He was in a blazer with a turtleneck sweater, and he's bald like me, and he had his hands steepled in front of him. And I came to find out later that he's a practicing Buddhist. To the best of my knowledge, they are very peace-loving people, maybe even on the pacifist side, a value of all life. And as I walked in the door, this gentleman looks at me and says, Lonnie, I began to lift you up in my morning meditations today and thought about you on your morning run. But then I changed my prayer and I prayed for the individual who might assault you. And so I've got the Buddhist praying to protect other people from me, not to protect me. I got asked to speak in Columbiana. Columbiana is what I would consider to be L.A., Lower Alabama. And I drove down to this little 4-H conference center, which is a little bit south of Birmingham. And I'd driven down there in the middle of the summer to speak for this youth leadership group. I don't know if it was Boy State or Girl State or some kind of a 4-H thing, but I drove down not knowing exactly how long it would take me to get there. This was before the days of cell phones and GPSs. You know, you just had a map and an address and some general directions to get there. And I got there early enough that they gave me a little room and said, you can just kind of chill there till it's time to do your thing. And I looked at the clock and looked at my schedule and thought, well, I've got time to get in, you know, a run. There was a time when I tried to run 5 out of 7 days every week. And so I dressed out. Now, you got to remember that I came from a very, very strict religious upbringing. I still consider myself a very strict religious person. I try to be a person of ethics and morals. Uh, the place I was raised was very, very strict on modesty. I didn't wear shorts in public until I was about 35. So my early days of running with SWAT always involved me running in sweatpants, and so this is where I am. I'm still in the days when I'm really not comfortable wearing shorts out in public because of a modesty issue. I've since changed my mind on that. We can get into that sometime later, but I had my running stuff with me. I had lived in Alexander City one summer. And that summer in Alexander City, a lady had given me, she worked for Russell Mills, the Russell Athletic Company. And when I left Alexander City that summer, she had given me a stack of sleeveless T-shirts, sleeveless sweatshirts, and lots and lots and lots of sweatpants of various colors because she knew that I tried to be athletic. And so I have this collection of sweatpants. On this particular day, I had brought with me in my running gear a pair of white sweatpants and a white T-shirt. I donned my running gear. I looked at the numbers on my pager and decided I would run till that number matched the fact that I had run out away from the conference center about 16 minutes, and then I would run back 16 minutes. That would be 3.2 miles if I ran 32 minutes. And so off I go in South Alabama, a place I've never been. No cell phone. No way to find me, no way for me to call for help if I get hurt. I don't have any ID on me, and I'm just running down this little 2-lane South Alabama road. The sides of the road are covered with pine trees and just typical, South Alabama flatland area, a little bit of a rolling hill, and I'm on this 2-lane road out in the middle of nowhere in lower Alabama. I come over the crest of this little hill, and I notice way in front of me, looks like a group of people. Well, I'm down here at this 4-H camp, and so there may be a hiking group. It could be a Boy Scout group. I didn't really know what I thought, but I'm just jogging along. And as I get closer to the group, I recognize, hey, this is a prison work group. These are some guys on work release from some local prison down here. I can see now a couple of guys mounted on horses with long guns, either shotguns or rifles. And then I noticed that everybody in the work group is wearing white. Yeah, like the white scrubs, the white prison jumpers, the white prison tops, and the white prison bottoms. And I recognize that everybody that's on the work group, everybody on the chain gang, as my mom would call it, is dressed just like I am. Now, what am I going to do? If I run to this group and through this group, are they going to keep me? If they see a guy running to them, through them, and past them, is the guy on the horse going to get excited and decide that I've made a break for it? And without really paying attention, and I can't prove who I am, I can't prove who I'm not. So I decide I'm not going to run to this group. In fact, I decide I'm going to turn around and I'm going to run away from this group as fast as I can. And then it hits me. You're wearing all white. And if the dude on the horse with the long gun looks up and sees you running away from this group as fast as you can, he may just decide to take a shot with his rifle. And the worst thing that could happen, well, I guess the best thing that could happen is he shoots you dead. The worst thing is he could shoot you and cripple you. I don't know what to do. I'm wearing all white. They're wearing all white, and I've either got to run to them, through them, or away from them, and none of them seemed like a good answer to me. And so I ran off into the side of the woods and down into the ditch, and I pulled my white shirt off, and I began to crawl in the bushes. Now, this is July in Alabama, and I'm crawling through the weeds and the bushes and the thistles till I get to that place in the road where that little hill breaks, and I know that when I crawl out of there, I can't be seen from the road anymore. And so I get out of the woods and I go back to my hotel room, and I put on my regular clothes and I deliver my speech. And I decided that then and there I had to have a different strategy when I went running off by myself in places and parts unknown. It became so important that day not to be seen as one of them. Now, them on this occasion happened to be the prisoners in the work group, the prisoners on work release, or as my grandmother or my mom would call it, the chain gang. I did not want to be mistaken for them. I did not want to be identified as one of them, and I did not want to be treated like one of them. I wonder how much of our time is spent making sure we're not misidentified. I wonder how much of our time has been actually manipulated so that somebody doesn't give us a bad label, so that somebody doesn't call us one of them. And them can be anything. Them can be any title of any group that you don't want to be associated with, because either you just don't like them, or somebody has said that if we identify you as one of them, then we won't like you anymore. And thus, the cancel culture and political correctness, and having to watch and measure every single word you say and every thought you have. And it's funny to me that the culture that preaches tolerance is only tolerant when you agree with them. And we're very careful not to be identified as one of them. I don't want to be mistaken for one of them. I don't want to be treated like one of them. And I don't want one of them to mistake me for who I am. Self-image is how you see yourself. Self-esteem is how you feel about what you see. At some point, we're going to have to claim our culture back. And we're going to have to decide that I can disagree with people and still love them. I can consider your behavior, I can consider your choices to be sinful, and still find great value in you as a person. I can find your choices to just simply be unwise or unlikable, and still like you and still value you as a person. But if we live in a society and we live in a culture where we are constantly trying to protect ourselves so that we're not confused or mistaken as one of them, then we're no longer living by an internal locus of control. We're no longer living by an internal mechanism that defines who we are, and what you are determines what you do. It's not the other way around. But if we have to check our values at the door, and we have to be very, very careful not to be mistaken for one of them, then we don't end up running to our goal. We don't end up running to a group. We don't end up running through a group. We don't end up running beyond a group. What we do is we end up hiding. We end up not running at all. We end up skulking away in the bushes. And in my case, I didn't want to be shot because somebody thought I was an escaping prisoner. But how many times do we abdicate? the authenticity of who we are. How many times do we give up on our own identity, just making sure that somebody else doesn't confuse us, mistake us, or misinterpret us for one of them, however you define them? And instead of running, we end up crawling, and we end up hiding, and we end up crawling away. I would like to dream that you could run and I could run, and that it really didn't matter what our shirt looked like or what was said on our shirt, that you've got the right to express that opinion, because that's what our country was founded on, the ability to say things in a polite way. And actually, you have the ability to say things in an impolite way. I just try not to be an impolite person. But the bottom line is that if we spend so much of our time trying to protect this identity so that we don't have a identity confusion, then we really do stop running and we start hiding. We start crawling. There are 32 miles of cave passages in Cumberland Cavern. 333 feet underground is the Volcano Room. The Volcano Room is the site for the youth rally known as Erupt. It's an underground youth rally. It's an annual event. It takes place in October. The next Erupt is scheduled for October of 2021. Erupt is a sponsor of Keeping Up with Jones, the LonnieJones podcast adventure. If you'd like more information, you may contact them at eruptyouthRally@gmail.com. That's eruptyouthRally@gmail.com. Or check out their website for more information, 3 W's and a dot, eruptyouthRally.com, www.eruptyouthRally.com. Keeping Up with Jones, the Lonnie Jones podcast adventure. I am your host, Lonnie Jones. My wife Jackie and I moved to the city of Huntsville in 1986 for me to be a youth and family minister. I have been a minister since 1980. I have served in this community as a police chaplain assigned to a SWAT team since 1992, and I've been in private practice as a licensed professional counselor since 1998. I'm also an adventure educator and an avid outdoorsman. I dabble in rock climbing and I goof around with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Our life has been full of many wonderful experiences and some just outright adventures. I used to write about those things in a little church bulletin article. So now instead of asking you to read those things, we're just going to talk about them in our podcast. And as we talk about them, we're going to talk about the facts. The facts lead to concepts, and the concepts lead to application. One caveat about the facts is, for the most part, we're going to tell you the facts just as they happened. But every now and then, we're going to tell you the way other people have told us they remember it happening, with a little bit of embellishment. It's all good, clean fun and for educational purposes. Thank you for listening, and we hope you enjoy Keeping Up with Jones.